Hello, I am the gaming superhero, and today we are starting a new era for the channel in celebration of reaching 200 subscribers. An era of community requests. This has been a long time coming. I got this first request a few months ago in May, and I am finally getting around to fulfilling the requests because that's just how long it goes from going to marking it on the schedule to actually getting made. But regardless, we are here, and we are starting with the request that started it all, from Leo Chase the Mythmaster for Mr. Sinister, the biggest X-Men villain that couldn't make it into the movies, despite many attempts. Also, this Wednesday is my first official community play session with everyone in the Discord, with a maximum of 12, I guess, but even then I'm sure we could do like a cycling system, although it's not a big concern for the first time. And now for shoutouts. Nobody on the Discord gets it correctly, but on YouTube we have Vitamin D Cosplay 2764 and Juliac 1508 and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Leo Chase the Mythmaster. He is also guessed correctly. It was Mr. Sinister. Good job, everyone. Dr. Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister, because I guess turning evil caused him to lose his doctorate, first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 213 as a shadow for a single panel, so we're going to ignore that and go over his first full appearance in Uncanny X-Men number 221, which is a massive gap, by the way. We open with Sinister scolding the Marauders, a supervillain team he has assembled, made up of Sabretooth and a bunch of losers nobody's heard of. They failed at killing Madeline Pryor, the gene clone from X-Men 97. Sabretooth doesn't like being talked down to and calls Sinister Bub, which is not some kind of tell that Wolverine is impersonating Sabretooth. I guess they just both say it. After Sabretooth gets his shit rocked, we cut to Rogue and Dazzler fighting each other. Except not really. Dazzler is beating the snot out of a fake Rogue in the danger room. Rogue comes in offended that her teammate is using her as a punching bag, and we learn Dazzler doesn't like Rogue for trying to kill her multiple times in the past. Because yes, Dazzler had her own comic run, and Rogue was a regular antagonist before she joined the X-Men. They're about to get into a real scrap before they are interrupted by Psylocke, summoning them for a mission. First, we cut to the Grand Canyon, which was created by Dormammu in the Marvel Universe, or at least that's what Nate says, this Native American guy who is plotting to control Storm by helping her find and save Forge. Look, I'm not entirely sure what is going on here. We then cut to San Francisco, where the X-Men are watching over Jean's clone, when the Marauders attack. Rogue deals with Sabretooth and gets knocked out by Scalp Hunter. Luckily, Dazzler is able to snipe him and knock him out. She, Psylocke, and Longshot then have to deal with Vertigo and Harpoon by jumping into a sand truck. Vertigo being a person who inflicts the condition, and you not get one, and you get one guess what Harpoon does. The three X-Men try to run, but Psylocke is hit by Harpoon and psychically sends the pain she receives to all of her teammates subconsciously. Like, not even, like, everyone nearby, specifically just her teammates. Causing even Wolverine and Havoc, who are now in the hospital, to feel the pain, long enough for Scramble to touch Havoc and make his powers go crazy and destroy the building. Luckily, Madeline is trapped, and is prepared to scramble Scrambler when Arclight creates an earthquake, so Rogue runs with Madeline to lead the Marauders away. I guess flies would be more accurate, but whatever. But they are both caught by Polaris when the three X-Men that tried to run from the fight arrive, because the sand truck they landed in just so happened to pass the trap. How convenient. Dazzler, using Longshot's grapples the metal beam into the river and cuts Madeline and Rogue loose. Rogue and Dazzler have a moment to overcome their differences, then when Polaris comes back to finish them. But that is where this issue ends. Really thought Sinister would be more involved, but oh well. Also, a little surprised at how much was going on in this issue. I hope you were all able to follow, because I wasn't. I have decided to make the Marvel Universe's Jack the Ripper into a support, because he is a scientist, but also a doctor, like an actual medical doctor. How could I not make the licensed medical doctor a support? Hopefully, I can convince you as we go on. His primary fire is a basic damaging projectile, while his secondary fire is a projectile that will heal allies but also apply anti-shield to enemies. It doesn't damage enemies on its own, however, so, don't just use it as a primary fire. It's also not one of those health projectiles that can hit multiple people, so you have to choose whether to heal your allies or apply the anti-shield to enemies. You also gotta be careful of who you're healing at any given moment. There is also a movement ability where Sinister can teleport to a nearby ally, healing both them and himself. Not like a whole lot, but just a little bit. Similar to Kiriko, but with a slight bit of healing. A nice little bonus to encourage sticking with the team. I've also given him a melee ability, because I feel like I haven't done that in a while. It is called Sample Collection. Meleeing enemies will take a small amount of time off of your cooldowns, making your cooldown shorter the more you melee. He also has a passive that will make zero sense until I explain his abilities, so let's get to that. Ability 1 is Mitosis. For the science nerds in the audience, you already know. Activate the ability and create a duplicate Sinister that mirrors your movement, and then you can also choose to have it do one of two things. Either the duplicate will heal allies or damage enemies, essentially deciding if the extra will use the primary or secondary fire. It has perfect bot aim, obviously, and will last for as long as no one destroys it. Once it is destroyed, it will go on cooldown, or you can recall it if you want to redeploy with another effect. So let's say you deploy it with the heal fire but change your mind. You then have to destroy the clone and redeploy it to make it a damaging clone. This allows you to have a literal heal bot, letting you deal with some damage or have a moving Namor turret while you heal your team, or double up on either. This ability and concept is inspired by the fact that clones are Sinister's whole deal. But in function, I was inspired by the Emma team-up with Magneto and Psylocke. The movement of the clone acts exactly the same, except the clone will focus on its own targets. Those being whoever is closest, or enemies who, or allies who have the lowest health, depending on the type of clone. This also leads into his passive, which is Backup. If you die before your clone, you will simply take direct control of the clone, functioning as a respawn, making being able to identify and kill the clone first important for actually getting rid of Sinister for good. Ability 2 is Pushed Beyond. Buff an ally, increasing their fire rate, eliminate their need to reload essentially infinite ammo, but it's important to note that if the ally keeps shooting beyond their usual mag limit, they will take damage for each shot if they don't reload, giving it a bit of a give and take. This, however, does make it a total gain when applied to characters that don't have a mag limit, like melee characters or Hawkeye. The ability will also allow the chosen ally to receive increased healing, allowing a support to keep them alive with infinite ammo. Ability 3 is Mind Link. Link with an enemy so that all damage taken is transferred to them instead, but Sinister himself is unable to damage the linked enemy. This was an interesting ability in that I wanted to showcase more than just Sinister's cloning ability, and also give him a defense tool when being jumped, because he really needed it. After all, he only had a second life passive and a get out tool, but not going to lie, I may have given a bit too many survival tools. But I actually think this could be balanced if you give all of them a long enough cooldown, and then it incentivizes the use of the melee to shorten the cooldowns, but also leaves you more exposed, thus balancing everything out if he has to run towards the enemy to punch them. The ultimate is One Man Army. Spawn up to 8 Sinister clones over a few seconds that alternate between being damage clones and healing clones. It will also remove the cooldown from his passive, which I did not mention, but yes, his passive usually has a cooldown, so you can't respawn on a Mitosis clone and then immediately spawn a new one to then jump into that one. But during the ult, you can just keep respawning as long as there are clones on the field. The ult will last for a few seconds, and once it is over, all the clones will disappear. This is an accumulation of all the crazy clone shenanigans. Full army. Now the specific number can be adjusted to create balance, but overall I think this would be a really cool ultimate. Now, I don't have a team up. I tried, I really did, but with the whole cloning aspect already being taken by Emma Frost of all characters, there really isn't anything really good If you can think of anything, let me know in the comments, but yeah, that's all I've got. So yeah, that is how I would add the first community-requested character, aka the third most popular X-Men villain, I think. Assuming Magneto and Apocalypse are the, number 1 and 2. But whatever, this was very fun. It also got away from me a little bit because I started with just focusing on his cloning, but then realizing there is so much more to give him, hence the movement ability and the ability 3, went crazy and made him unkillable support. But also, I think the cooldowns could be made to compensate, as I stated before. That said, I do still love how his clone side came out. Very fun, building off of a lot of what Rivals has been doing between Loki and Emma team up. Especially with the passive of taking over the clone upon death. I would expect this to be really trippy. I also hope I've convinced you on him being a support, because people seem to be really defensive about what role characters are put in, and being offended that their character might be made a support. Like this weird thing of like, oh, that character, why do you want that character to be like a, this specific thing? They need to be super powerful. Like this was a big thing with Jean. Like, why do you think Jean should be a tank? She's a super, she killed the universe. She should be a DPS. Like is any correlation whatsoever. I don't get it. But hey, what can you do? Remember to tell me what skins you would give him for the short on Wednesday, as well as the first ever community game night on Wednesday. Should be really fun. Hope a lot of you can join. And you're welcome for doing what Fox never could.